Good morning.
Good morning. How
It's
are you?
very early. Good. It's very early. I mean, we're recording at 10 a.m., which we never record in the mornings. So, yeah, good Monday morning. It's the brand new day that we release episodes on Mondays now, along with our snack size episodes. And how are you? It's even earlier where you're at.
It is, but I'm used to getting up now a little used to getting up now with the kids to get them off to school.
Yeah.
So it's not too bad. Although, since it was Friday, I stayed up a little bit later than I usually do. So I am a bit tired, but I have coffee. So thank you,
Yeah.
coffee gods.
Thank you, coffee gods. Yes. Do you have a ghost in your house? Because the door behind you just opened on its own.
I have a fucking cat that's a pain in the ass. Is that the same
Oh,
thing?
I mean, is it a ghost cat? Because that would be more on brand than just a regular cat.
No, he's just an asshole. That's kind of on brand, though.
Okay, I mean, it's true.
He's obsessed right now with being in my closet. I don't know why. He just goes in there and lays in there, but like he's not happy unless he can be in the closet.
Kitty, come out of the closet.
Right?
Everybody's out of the closet. They're happy out of the closet. You don't need to stay in the closet. It's 2023. That's funny. All right. Well, I don't have any EVPs. Do you have anything?
No, it's too early for EVPs. I don't
It's
have anything. I don't have anything.
It's so early. All right. Well, I think this is a record. We're going to jump right into the episode, guys. 2 minutes and 20 seconds in. Hey, maybe mornings are probably better for us.
Right?
Jesus. All right, guys. Laura, tell them where we're taking them.
We are going to Cresson Sanatorium and State Prison.
Wee! All right, jump right in with your sources. How are we so on top of shit this early in the morning?
Maybe this is our time and we just never knew. We don't have enough time to drink or
I mean, listen, there might be Kahlua. There might be Kahlua in my coffee. I'm just saying.
All right. My socials are wikipedia.com, cambriamemory.org, countyfoxexploring.com, thenation.com, and justice.gov.
Okay, this is a good one. We got a notorious guy that was at this one.
Yes, we do. And I get to him last. So hang on.
Save the worst.
It's going to be a minute.
Save the worst for last.
All right. So, Cresson Sanatorium is a massive 500-acre compound. And it is located off U.S. Route 22. It's about 90 minutes from Pittsburgh. And Carrie just popped up a picture. If you are listening, then it'll be on our social media.
Yeah.
The Cresson Tuberculosis Sanatorium treated more than 40,000 patients suffering from tuberculosis between 1913 and 1964.
Ew.
Crazy, right?
That's too many.
It is by far too many.
It's way too many.
The sanatorium opened as both a hospital and a long-term residential care facility to treat both individuals and entire families who had tuberculosis.
Jesus.
So, TB was such an epidemic that in 1900 there were 34 sanatoriums in the U.S., but by 1925 there were 536.
Fuck.
Yeah. So the Cresson Sanatorium was one of the earlier ones, and it still provides a record of life at an institution at a time of heightened health concerns and the spread of tuberculosis.
Wow. All right.
So, yeah, the Cresson Sanatorium is in the mountains near the present-day town of Cresson in the Cambria County.
Okay. 90 minutes from Pittsburgh. Jen, are you listening? We have a road trip next time I'm up.
I was like, maybe I should have brought that up. It was affectionately called the San. And some patients stayed there for years, while others who died there were never reclaimed by their families and are interred in a nearby hillside.
That's awful.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, wasn't it with Waverly Hills? If you checked into Waverly with tuberculosis, that was just it. You knew you were never leaving. Say goodbye to your life. You're staying here forever. I feel like it was Waverly Hills that had that, And that
kind of
was
policy.
staff and patients. So it's interesting that this place was like, maybe you can leave. Maybe you can leave out the hearse loading dock.
Right. Well, okay, so the several hundred acres of land on which the hospital was built was originally purchased by steel magnate and philanthropist Andrew Carnegie in the early 1900s.
Oh, okay.
So he had planned to build a mansion there for his mother, where she could enjoy the health benefits of the clean air at the 2,000-foot elevation of the property. However, she died before she could make the move.
Oh, tuberculosis.
So I'm not positive, to be honest.
How ironic would that be?
It would be ironic. Especially because Carnegie then sold the land to the state of Pennsylvania for $1 if they would agree to build a TB sanatorium on the property.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So the state gladly accepted, obviously, because they thought it was an ideal location with its abundance of the clean air and serene surroundings, which would greatly benefit TB patients. And it was, surrounded by the forest and, like I said previously, up on the mountains. That sounds lovely.
It sounds very much like the Stanley Hotel.
I mean, a little. But construction was started in 1912 and completed in 1916. The original administration building was built in the European style, which is like a Tudor style, with gargoyles on the tower and the crests of Scottish clans cut into the sandstone as a reminder of Mr. Carnegie's heritage.
Oh my God, that's pretty cool. Although gargoyles are not very comforting if you're like afraid you're going to die soon.
I mean, but gargoyles are cool, so sometimes you got to make concessions. Fuck it up, Carrie.
Okay, sorry.
They're cool looking.
Don't pull at that thread, Carrie. Sorry.
Aesthetics, bitch, aesthetics. So the first buildings erected were the administration building, dining building, and east wing, which were all connected by corridors. Along with the powerhouse, it had its own power source. Laundry, 20 cottages, and 4 open pavilions. And there was a barn and poultry houses.
Cool.
Yeah. So as more patients began to arrive, more buildings were constructed. In 1914, the chapel was built. The west wing containing the men's hospital and an addition to the dining building were also constructed. The addition to the dining building added more kitchen and dining space as well as quarters for nurses.
Okay.
All right. So
it's a huge place.
It's enormous. And they ended up having like a nursing school there and continue going and going. So, but do you know what the treatment was in the early 1900s for tuberculosis?
Wasn't it to like deflate the lung and then try to...
That came later. In the beginning, it was just fresh air, nourishing food, and sleep. Like if you got better, you got better. So it often took years to stop the disease. And later they did the pneumothorax treatment, which was when they did a partial or complete collapsing of the lung by introduction of air. So it gave the affected lung a chance to rest and heal.
Yeah.
Which seems very counterintuitive. Like it's all, take a nap.
It does, yeah. Try not to breathe. You won't be able to anyway.
Right? So finally, they got new drug therapy, which minimized surgical risks and speeded recovery.
Cool.
Okay, but when the other funny thing I find about this is that when the sanatorium opened, so the only way to get there was by railroad, right? And then, because it was in the middle of fuck off nowhere at the time. So, and then once you got to the railroad stop that was closest, they would bring you up by mules up the mountain. like
you're riding on
like on a sled. Okay, so yeah, they would come by the railroad and then they were brought in a wagon or sled up 2 miles. 2 miles to the hospital.
They could have at least built inclines like Pittsburgh has, just a nice little like cable car up the mountain.
Right. Can I get a funicular, please? Or is one of those when you need it? I just thought that was kind of crazy. Like, so everything was brought that way though too. So anything that wasn't produced on site had to be brought up, like
That
the
sucks.
patients, the whatever, everything by mule,
Those poor mules.
right?
I wonder how many they went through.
I don't know. It says they had 4 in the beginning, so I know eventually they did get like a car or whatever, but
Four, four fucking mules for all that? Jesus.
a lot. So in 1921, they built more cottages, as well as a playhouse for children, because at one time there were more than 250 children that were living at the San.
Whoa.
So yeah, they also built a couple schoolhouses. They added a garage and a large hall for entertainment. I mean, there was a lot of people
Good
coming
God.
in and going.
40,000 over its course of its operation. That's insane.
Right, which is just, it was 50 years, so
And just the one garage? That's interesting.
just,
Who got to park there?
You had mules. You had mules. You don't need fucking cars. So the mules got to park there.
It's a 4-mule garage. Oh my God. Okay. I'm putting that in the show notes.
Right. So the coming of the 30s brought new advancements in the treatment of TB. So that's when they needed to do even more construction. So they added a surgical suite. World War II did stop construction for a few years, obviously because of supplies.
Sure.
So when supplies were available again, more additions were added. So in 1956, the Cresson Sanatorium was incorporated into the Lawrence F. Flick State Hospital.
Okay.
So the hospital specialized in treating patients with severe mental disorders. In 1964, the name changed to the Cresson State School and Hospital.
Oh, okay.
At this time, the facility added the treatment of various intellectual disabilities. And all during that time, too, right, the cases of TB had gone down drastically.
Way down, yeah.
And so they needed to find something to do. So, well, they had they had the mules, they had the buildings. Like, let's fucking...
We got to do something with this. I'll look at all of this. What are we going to do now?
The mules are bored. So in 1983, the facility was changed again to SCI Crescent. So construction and remodeling was completed in 1987. It operated as a medium security prison for men until 2013.
Whoa,
It
really?
Yeah. It didn't even close that long ago.
Yeah.
So
10 years ago.
it housed some 1,624 prisoners whose crimes ranged from murder to drunk driving.
Yeah.
During its time as a prison, the building saw multiple suicides and even housed a serial killer. So before I get to him, this is an excerpt from an article written by Matt Stroud from April of 2012,
Okay.
right before the prison was closed. So I'm just going to jump into this article so you guys can get an idea of what the prison was like.
Okay.
So, and the kind of stuff they were doing. So by the time John McClellan Jr. was found dead inside Pennsylvania State Correctional Institute at Cresson last May, he had long been categorized as special needs for his history of addiction and mental instability. Yet prisoners and staff say the 42-year-old inmate was not living in one of the facility's treatment units, but in the restricted housing unit, or otherwise known as solitary confinement.
Yeah.
So 2 months earlier, McClellan had written a letter to his father, a Philadelphia police officer, saying that 5 correctional officers had assaulted him, then filed false charges against him. So his dad had already contacted an attorney. Threats and abuse from guards were allegedly so frequent, his son kept a makeshift calendar on legal-sized notebook paper to keep track.
Jesus.
A former SCI Crescent prisoner, Tim Everard, who says he spent time in a neighboring cell, recalls seeing guards kicking the younger McClellan's cell door, calling him names, and goading him to kill himself. When Everard told the manager of the ward that McClellan seemed suicidal, Everard says she brushed him off, saying of the impulse to commit suicide, if he's going to act on it, he's going to act on it. On December 1st, the Justice Department announced an investigation into SCI Cresson, as well as SCI Pittsburgh, in response to allegations of prisoner abuse.
Yeah.
Since then, another inmate who reportedly asked repeatedly for and was denied mental health treatment committed suicide inside SCI Cresson. An investigation by The Nation uncovered details of the claims at the center of the probe, though interviews with current and former employees who they would only speak on condition of anonymity for fear of reprisal. That word's hard first thing in the morning. At least 3 sources with knowledge of the mental health procedures at Cresson, they provided evidence to the Justice Department, but they claimed that they were threatened with physical harm or false charges by prison authorities if they raised concern.
Dude, it's so fucked up inside prisons.
Oh yeah, it still
It's
is.
so fucked up, yeah.
Okay, so after this, it was investigated, obviously, but it was found that the prison violated the 8th Amendment of the Prisoners and also the American Disabilities Act. So I'm going to take this directly from the findings that were from the DOJ.
Okay.
So the manner in which Cresson uses prolonged isolation on prisoners with serious mental illness subjects them to a risk of serious harm. Cresson routinely locks prisoners with serious mental illness in their cells for roughly 23 hours per day for months, even years at a time.
Jesus.
Yeah. At Cresson, the prolonged isolation is all the harder for many prisoners with serious mental illness to endure because it involves harsh and punitive living conditions and often unnecessary staff-on-prisoner uses of force. Cresson often places prisoners with serious mental illness in isolation automatically because of their mental illness, and it fails to ensure that such placements are reviewed by the mental health staff. So once in the units, the prisoners often receive inadequate mental health care, and a lot of them don't get therapy at all, and they're unreasonably denied access to other services and programs. So the combination of these conditions and deprivations suggests Cresson is a medium security facility that uses isolation of prisoners with mental illness in the RHU, or, we already know isolation.
Yeah.
So they kind of go into more of the stuff. But it does say that, obviously this is subjects of prisoners to unnecessary and excessive risk. And many prisoners at Cresson in those conditions, they suffered physical and psychological harms such as psychosis, trauma, severe depression, serious self-injury, and suicide.
Jesus.
So after this investigation, they closed the prison on June 30th, 2013. But the state cited the antiquity of the prison and rising costs of maintaining it as the primary reasons for the closure.
Okay. We didn't do anything wrong. The building is just really fucking old.
Yeah, it's too much. It's too much. So, you can take that as you want.
That's insane. There's a guy on TikTok that I follow, and if I had my phone readily accessible, I would let you guys know what his name is, but he spent time in a Florida penitentiary. Mm-hmm. And so his TikToks are all about what life is like on the inside. And people ask him all kinds of questions about what about this guy? Like whoever, recent people that are in the news and stuff like that. What's going to happen to this guy, or what's going to happen to, the cops that beat this one and that one and this one. And he was saying, if you guys see these videos of cops that are wearing body cams, beating people on the street after pulling them over in traffic or whatever,
right?
If they're willing, if they're willing to do this, knowing they're being filmed out in the world, he's like, imagine how they behave when they're inside a prison where there is nobody to watch them, no video to be leaked. Imagine what it's like for prisoners with corrections officers who are not...
They don't even have the same standards or training as police officers do.
Yeah. Yeah, he's like,
and they don't pay them that well for the most part because of the prison industrial company.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so they pay them as cheap as they can.
And this isn't anything new. We have covered how many prisons and penitentiaries in the 4 years we've been doing this show. It's been the same since the dawn of prisons. Mm-hmm. So it's just
in the United States,
horrible. Yeah. Well, yeah.
A lot of places, but yeah. So let's get to your favorite guy. On to the serial killer that was actually locked up in there and not one that worked there.
Yeah. Nuts. Nuts. This story is fucking nuts.
Okay. So his name was Joseph Callinger. And he was born on December 11th, 1935. So the child was placed in foster care after his father had abandoned his mother. And then he was adopted by Austrian immigrants, Stefan and Anna Callinger. He was abused by both of his adoptive parents so severely that at age 6, he suffered a hernia inflicted by his adoptive father.
Fuck.
The punishments Callinger endured include kneeling on jagged rocks, being locked inside closets, consuming excrement, committing self-injury, being burned with irons, being whipped with belts, and being starved. And then when he was 9, he was sexually assaulted by a group of neighbor boys.
Why the fuck do you adopt a child if all you want to do is just beat them? That's why.
I don't know. So when Callinger was 15, he began dating a girl named Hilda Bergman that he met at a theater. And his parents told him not to see her, but he married her and had 2 children with her. She later left him because of the domestic violence she suffered at his hands. Callinger was hospitalized at St. Mary's in 1957 due to headaches and loss of appetite, which doctors believe was a result of stress surrounding his divorce. But he remarried in 58 and had 5 children with his second wife.
Fuck. I didn't realize he had that many kids.
Right. He was extremely abusive towards his family and often inflicted the same punishments on them that he had suffered with his parents.
Yep. Children learn what they live.
So throughout the next decade, Callinger would spend time in and out of mental institutions for amnesia, attempted suicide, and committing arson. So he was arrested and imprisoned in 1972 when his children went to the police. So while in jail, he scored 82 on an IQ test and was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia.
Fuck.
And state psychiatrists recommended that he be supervised with his family. But the children later recanted their allegations.
Of course they did.
So 2 years later, one of his children, Joseph Jr., was found dead in an abandoned construction building 2 weeks after Callinger took out a large life insurance policy on his sons.
Jesus.
So although Callinger claimed that Joseph Jr. had run away from home, the insurance company suspected foul play and refused to pay.
Yeah. Because by this point, this had been like insurance companies were like, come on, you guys, we're not stupid anymore.
Right.
Everybody's killing everybody. Just happened to be days or weeks after they take out a massive life insurance policy. Come on now.
You're like, you guys need to be planners, okay? Long game. So beginning in 1974, Callinger and his 12-year-old son, Michael, went on a crime spree spanning Philadelphia, Baltimore, New Jersey. So
12.
over the next 6 weeks, they robbed, assaulted, and sexually abused 4 families.
Fuck.
Gaining entrance to each house by pretending to be salesmen. On January 8th of 1975, they continued their spree in Leona, New Jersey. So they used a pistol and a knife, and they overpowered and tied up 3 residents. Then when others entered the home, they were forced to strip and were bound with cords from lamps and other appliances. So this culminated in the killing of 21-year-old nurse Maria Fashing, the 8th person to arrive. When she refused to follow Callinger's orders, he responded by stabbing her in the neck and back.
Bah, Jesus.
All right. Another of the residents, still bound, managed to get outside and cry for help. Neighbors saw her and called the police. But by the time they arrived, the Callingers had fled using the city bus as their getaway vehicle.
My God.
And dumping their weapons and a bloody shirt along the way.
On the bus or toss it out the window of the bus.
Right? It sounds about right. That sounds about what they did.
Stick it in an old lady's knitting bag. Like, what the fuck?
So police investigated Callinger after gathering the bloody shirt and eyewitness testimony that he and his son had been seen in the area.
Oh, Jesus.
So they soon found out all about his history of domestic violence, Joseph Jr.'s unsolved death, and all of the arsons that were targeted against buildings he owned. So,
Yes. Casual.
right. Nobody's going to know.
That's not suspicious at all. Buildings catch
not.
fire. It happens all the time.
Right. Just randomly. So Callinger and his son were arrested on kidnapping and rape charges. Callinger was eventually charged with 3 counts of murder for his son, Joseph Jr., Maria Fashing, and a neighborhood boy. Callinger pleaded insanity, claiming God had told him to kill.
Fuck.
So, but he was found sane and sentenced to life in prison in 1976. So Michael, meanwhile, the son, was judged to be under his father's control. He was sentenced to a reformatory, and when he was released at age 21, he moved out of state and changed his name.
I would too.
So, yeah, right. So while in prison, Callinger made several suicide attempts, including attempting to set himself on fire.
Jesus Christ, what is with this guy in fire?
I don't know. Because of his suicidal and violent behavior, he was transferred to a mental hospital in Jersey for a while. And he was also in a mental institution in Philadelphia. Obviously, before he came to Cresson. So the lady Flora Schreiber, who wrote the book Sybil, do you know what I'm talking about? Okay. So Sybil is a really famous book. It was like the first book, as far as I can remember, and I might fuck this up, so listeners, please bear with me. About a woman with split personalities, what they used to call split personalities.
Oh.
So, anyway, that's what it's famous for. So
Now that you mention it, I think I have heard of that. The minute you said that, I was like, oh, okay, I have heard of that. I didn't know it was called Sybil.
So she interviewed Callinger in jail in 1976, and those interviews became the basis for a book, and it was published by Simon & Schuster under the title "The Shoemaker: The Anatomy of a Psychotic" in 1983. Right. This book was later part of a Son of Sam lawsuit brought by one of the victims' families, as Callinger had received royalties for the book. A judge awarded the family earnings not only from Callinger, but from Schreiber and Simon & Schuster as well. And it left Schreiber nearly $100,000 in personal debt due to expenses of the book's research.
Wow.
Which included phone calls to Callinger in prison, which totaled $1,200 per month for several years.
Fuck.
A later appellate panel only awarded only Callinger's royalties to the families. But... And there's this guy, Michael Corder, he was an editor at Simon & Schuster, and he said that for many years he received a Christmas card from Callinger from jail. And that Schreiber and Callinger became very close during the writing process, and they regularly exchanged letters and phone calls until she died in 1988.
Did he kill her?
No.
Okay, thank God.
Not that we know of. Unless he called her and just went, boo, really loud.
Heart attack.
So, right. He actually also died of heart failure on March 26, 1996.
Cool. Couldn't have happened to a nicer guy.
Cresson. And he spent the last 11 years of his life on suicide watch there.
Jesus, 11 years. God.
Crazy, right? That's a long-ass time.
That is a long-ass time.
Yeah. So that is what I have on Cresson. The sanatorium, the prison, the everything you could want.
The 4-mule garage.
Right. It's got everything. It's got a little something for everybody.
Wow, that's really, really cool. Good job.
Thank you.
The story about his son, the fact that the kid was 12, when I first heard the story of Joseph Callinger, I was like, that's fucking horrific. But then I was watching a show about Cresson, and they said that he was there, and I'm like, oh my God, we have to absolutely. So I do talk about him a little bit in my part. So let's just jump right into the ghosts. Let's see here. So my sources are hauntedus.com. Again, these are all .com, WTAJ, only in your state, board as law, Amy's Crypt, and medium.com also, and I forgot to put it on here, but pabucketlist.com as well. A lot of our photographs came from them. So we're going to give them their proper shout out for that and thank them very much for that. So let me see here. So, like you said, Laura, over the years, Cresson served as a tuberculosis hospital, a mental hospital, and a state prison. And ghost stories and interactions that people have had there suggest that the entire complex is haunted by spirits from each of its different lives, which doesn't surprise me. I bet those mules are haunting it too. I bet anything.
I bet they are.
I bet they are. So areas such as the medical and psychiatric building, the sanatorium, the hospital building, they had a building called the End of Life building, and the chapel holds some of the most terrifying energy. Let me show you the chapel real quick here. Let me see if I can pull that up. Which one is the chapel? Here we go. Nope, that's the prison. This is the chapel. They have very different pews in the chapel, apparently. No, that's wrong. Let's try this. Here we go. There we go. So this is the chapel. It seems a little, I don't know, it just seems a little out of place. Like, look at this beautiful church and look at this fence with razor wire all over it in front of the chapel. It just seems a little so the crazy thing that I read in most all of these articles and from like different YouTube shows and stuff that I watch is that being in these buildings in total darkness makes your interactions really scary because for whatever reason, these buildings are very, very, very dark. Like there's windows in these buildings, but for some reason, like at night, I don't know if maybe because did you read anything about like what surrounds it now? You know how like Ohio State Reformatory has like homes around it and it's not just out on its own in a space of land. Are there...
I believe it still is a little bit out
is
by
it?
itself.
Then that might be why, because...
It's just outside. It's as far as I saw, it looks like it's outside of town. Like there's a town nearby now, but it sits like right in between, like kind of down, I think, like in the mountain, but kind of
like in a valley.
Yeah, maybe like a pitch, so it's like,
okay.
Because they were saying that when the rain fell on one side, it went somewhere, and then when it went west side, it fell somewhere else. So like they would go down the mountain on different directions.
Oh, that's interesting.
So yeah, just kind of weird, but and it's forest out there.
Yeah,
or it was. I mean, obviously on the property, there's not like a bunch of trees or anything,
right?
But
okay, that might be why then.
It doesn't seem like there's a ton of shit out there. Plus, they're all brick. They're like very Tudor style. So
yeah,
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there are windows, but there's not like a ton of them, right?
Yeah. There's one article that I read that said that they had done an investigation of this location and it was a full moon out. But even with that light, it was still really, really dark. That was kind of like the recurring theme in every single thing I read about this place is for whatever reason, it's just darker than the dark, which I found really creepy, but also really interesting. So most of the buildings are in total darkness. So now in the church, in the chapel, there was a group that were in there doing an investigation and they thought that they saw something, but they were like, it could have been another group. However, they found out later that no other group was near the church at the time that they were in there. The church has it feels like a malevolent entity in it. And like a creeper that like I hate the crab walkie shadows. I hate the ones that are on the ceiling. I hate all of that. And I love the paranormal so much, but I can't with those creepy things. The End of Life building, crying is often heard, not just captured on EVP, but actually like heard people that are in there on groups, on tours, things like that. You hear weeping, which is, to be expected considering the name of the building. So this is the building that you were sent to if you had terminal cancer or any other illness that couldn't be cured. You would spend your last day there without family being allowed to visit you.
Wow.
Yeah. So the hearing crying, not really a surprise. In just about every building, the weird thing is that you always feel like you're being watched or that somebody is following you. People have seen shadow figures, apparitions, hearing knocks to actual voices. Again, the crying footsteps behind them that stop when you do. That aren't like echoes of your own footsteps, because you could be in like tennis shoes that are like quiet soles and you can hear footsteps behind you on like the chips of paint and stuff. And then when you stop, it stops. It's creepy.
Wow. That's kind of.
Exactly. Now, because of the unique history that you just went over, all of that kind of brings with it the perfect storm of emotions, right? You've got heartache, loss, forgiveness, remorse, hope. There's a lot of emotion in all of the different things that building was, or those buildings. That I guess we should call it a campus, a complex. Complex?
Yeah, I mean, it's 500 acres, multiple buildings.
It's huge. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's maybe another reason why it's so dark, is that the only other light would be coming from the other buildings, because it is so fucking massive, right?
Right.
So even if there is stuff out there, it's pretty far out there.
Yeah. Yeah. It took Destination Fear 2 episodes to cover all of the buildings because there were so many of them. All of them had activity in them. So they didn't want to just like keep it to just a handful. They wanted to explore all of them. So one of the biggest hotspots in this place is the tunnel system that's beneath the complex. And since it was open to the public, the tunnels have become known for strange sounds echoing through the darkness. These tunnels are gross. Let me see if I can. Is this the tunnel?
So don't they call them, what do they call them? Isn't it the nickname? I think I saw that they called them the death tunnels.
Ugh.
Or something.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it would make sense. Like Waverly has the body chute, you know, where you could just like shuttle the dead bodies out so that other patients don't see it. I mean, maybe.
Right.
These tunnels connect the entire complex to each other.
Right.
So sounds down in here range from unexplained bangs, knocks, distant voices. Investigators have also noted that motion sensors will be triggered by unseen forces when placed in the tunnels. So things like REM pods and stuff like that. Shadows are often, like if you've got a flashlight, shadows, because they curve and they bend around. So around corners, shadows will often be seen. Like if you shoot your flashlight down the tunnel, you can see this like shadow head kind of peeking around the corner that'll then pop back behind the corner. That would be so jarring to see. That would be super jarring.
That's creepy.
Yeah. Now, in building F, which I'm not sure which building that was, but the sounds of phantom footsteps have been heard and even recorded. So that's another, like I said, that's kind of common everywhere, but primarily in building F. In building E, other mysterious sounds have been recorded. Previous investigators have recorded unexplained knocks and tapping sounds in response to questions throughout building E, which that's cool. That's really cool. Of course, every place has disembodied voices, and moans are also said to be common. Slamming doors have also been heard in the buildings, primarily in the prison part, the cell doors. Also, some suggest they slam in response to certain questions from investigators.
That's right.
All right. Visitors, let's see here. Visitors have often said they feel like an entity is following them as they go through certain buildings. So it doesn't seem to be like entities kind of stick to one building. Like you can go out of one and it'll like follow you into another one. Like they just kind of are everywhere, as opposed to some just stay in this block and some just stay over here. And so while most of these apparitions or these entities are invisible, plenty of people have had encounters with shadow figures around Cresson Sanatorium. Moving shadows and also stationary apparitions have been spotted throughout the complex, inside and outside. Visitors have reported seeing apparitions of former prisoners and staff, feeling sudden drops in temperature. Some have even claimed to have been physically touched or pushed by unseen entities. Joseph Callenger's former cell is quite active, and investigators will pick up aggressive EMF readings and an overall feeling of get out when you ask him about his murders. Like right away, you just know that you're not welcome there at all. It's also believed that men aren't terribly welcomed in this building, with most being the target of attacks. However, some women have been targeted in the cell block as well. Let me go back to that picture that I showed you just a second ago. Women have been targeted here, with a lot of them being harassed as far as being touched or having their hair pulled. I don't like that. Don't touch my hair.
No, it looks just like. Did you ever watch Oz, that series on HBO? Oh, no. It looks like the prison that was in Oz, like a lot.
Really?
I mean, I don't remember. Like, I didn't watch that show like fanatically, but
yeah,
when I remember, it has that. The tables in the middle of the,
bolted down, yeah.
Things around the edges, and then with the little like seats, like everything bolted down and
right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and also like look at these doors. So people are reporting these doors slamming in response to questions. Can you imagine? Like that takes a lot of energy.
Yeah.
For a spirit to do that. They're heavy doors, that were probably like electronic, like you pushed a button and they all slammed shut kind of thing.
They open and close all at the same time.
Right, yeah. So on the children's ward, which was built in the 1930s to treat children under 6 with tuberculosis, and this building also used to house the sanatorium morgue. Because why not put that in there with children? Visitors have reported encountering playful child spirits, as well as more aggressive entities. Shadow figures dart out in and out of rooms. They chase visitors down the hall. And antagonistic EVPs have been captured here. Others have reported that there's an entity that mimics visitors' sounds and voices, which I've experienced, in a couple of locations, and it is always very creepy. So other locations of interest include the old administration building, which was once part of the tuberculosis sanatorium. It's the oldest building on the campus. I believe it is the one in our title. Let's take a look. I think that's the picture that I used. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Look at the wheelchair out there for effect.
Like you don't really need it. It's creepy enough.
Yeah, it's fine. So guards have reported seeing full-bodied apparitions on the second floor despite the building being empty, and the tunnels scattered throughout the entire property and connect virtually every building are also a source of fear for many visitors, like I said. Back in the prison blocks, I'm just kind of jumping all over. We'll just hop around this entire place.
It's huge. It's hard to It
is. So E block, like I mentioned earlier, that was a housing unit for the general population. F block was the mental health housing ward, and J block is one of the more modern prison blocks. A lot of dark stories come out of all of these areas. Very common for paranormal reports as far as like activity. Like I said, Joseph Callenger is said to still be in his cell. Some spirits in these areas, like I said, harass female visitors, touch them, pull their hair, chase them, call their name. I don't like that. But especially like if nobody has said what their names are, they know what your name is. That's too intelligent. That's too, There's a thing is too intelligent of a haunting. Others report seeing shadow figures moving between the cells and hearing noises and footsteps throughout the building. That seems to be really common. They just seem to like to creep on you. and just be generally like uncomfortable and weird. Just make you be like, I gotta get out of here.
Right? They ask you trivia questions because they're so smart.
Right?
It's like following around. What does E equals MC squared mean?
Right? Could you imagine? The chapel, which was built in 1914, like you said, was a place of worship for both patients and inmates during its time in operation. The church-like feel of the chapel is now tainted by a dark energy that moves around the campus but seems to hang out in the tunnels in the chapel. Visitors have reported seeing an entity with claws perched on the chapel's ceiling. And that follows them around the property. Some have even witnessed it crawling on the ceiling and following them out like a piggyback ride.
Weird. No.
Gross. The energy inside the chapel tends to shift dramatically, causing doors to slam shut and visitors to experience uncontrollable shaking and exhaustion. REM pods and other light-up objects, dowsing rods, and pendulums work well in almost all areas of the compound, which you don't find in a lot of locations. Like some areas just don't have much, but it looks like you stumble across something no matter where you go in this place. One woman said during a public investigation in the chapel, she sat down alone in one of the pews and felt somebody sit down next to her in the dark. And it wasn't anyone in her group or the guide. She was on it by herself. You know how, like, you sit on a wooden pew and you can hear or feel somebody sit down next to you? Just the movement of the wood. And look over and be like, there's nothing there. Oh my God.
Gross.
I know. It's ridiculous. So, like I said, the building had a number of lives. You had covered all of those different like incarnations of what the complex had been, which was kind of a unique life. It's kind of rare to have a sanitarium turn into a mental hospital, and then it was then a prison. Like that, you almost never have that. So there's a lot of tales that are concealed within the walls of Cresson Sanatorium. Like you said, the tunnels, they used it to transport the dead. There's knocking games. Like if you bang on the pipes in the tunnels, you'll hear it echo, but then you'll hear the echo come back to you. Like they were like the spirit's banging in response on the other end, and you hear the echo come back to you. And then you'll hear it reappear down the tunnels when nobody else is down there. You'll just hear these knocks and echoes throughout the tunnel system. In the one tunnel, somebody heard a noise behind them and turned around, and there was a shadow figure that they were able to capture on film. Many people believe that some of the spirits are using the tunnel system to herd you places or trap you in between spirits.
The buildings or whatever. Yeah.
I don't love that at all. In the children's ward, the sound of music boxes are often heard. There's a device that's a music box. It's in the shape of a coffin, and I think you've seen it on some shows where it's kind of, it's motion sensor. So if something comes up next to it, it'll go off and play this creepy music. One group...
Because everybody needs that.
Yeah.
Fucking ambiance adder.
In the shape of a coffin. Why? You will hear this music box's music playing, even if one, it's not with you, it might be back in the gear room, or it might be in a completely different building, or two, you don't even own one of these music box pieces of equipment. You hear music boxes playing in the children's ward.
Oh, wild. I wonder if they just had them.
I wonder. It's like still unsettling.
Thing, back then.
Yeah.
Oh, it's still fucked up, but yeah.
Super unsettling. Super unsettling. So, that is what I have on the paranormal activity at this insane location. In our Know Before You Go, which we actually haven't done a Know Before You Go, guys, in a long time. You can contact them at 814-420-4998. They are located in Cresson, Pennsylvania at 251 Correction Road. That sounds like a warm and inviting address. And they apparently... Huh.
I forgot to add that the property was bought by a hydroponic farm
Yes.
that is running it now, that they grow hemp.
Yes.
So it was literally bought, and they use a bunch of the buildings for that.
I think
And
it's
then
Big House Produce or something is the name of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And then they are the ones that opened it up to the public. So the thing is, it hasn't even been open to the public that long.
It hasn't. No. Mm-mm.
Not legally.
Well,
For people to go in there and investigate. So
Yeah.
I'm sure that we're just going to hear more and more stuff now that it's gaining. People
A
are
ton.
starting to take notice of it, right? Like,
Yeah, absolutely. It's because it was on Destination Fear. And so that's how I learned about its existence,
Right.
was just watching that show. Destination Fear has put a lot of locations that people might not have known about on the map because it was such a popular show. So there's been you guys can go on YouTube, and there are a number of paranormal investigation YouTube channels that have gone to Cresson and have done investigations of it, and they have come back with really creepy interactions, really creepy evidence captured. It's certainly a place on my bucket list, but this bucket list is starting to get real long, Laura, of all the places that you and I need to go.
your bucket is full.
My bucket is full.
Yeah.
So for those of you who it's a little bit more up your bucket list, paranormal events range from $45 as guided daytime paranormal tours, all the way up to $1,400 private overnights for up to 10 people from 7 p.m. to 4 a.m. So, yeah, it's huge. And like you said, is it still, 250 acres?
Yeah, it's still pretty big.
Yeah.
Like,
It's nuts. Yeah. So that's not too bad. You do seem to get quite a lengthy stay on the property so that you can investigate. And for 10 people works out to be $140, which compared to other sites is kind of expensive, but again, really lengthy amount of time on the property, and you get the access to the entire complex. So
Yeah,
I think for the price point, it's worth it. It's worth it. Yeah. So, that's all I have, guys. The idea that you would come across a serial killer's ghost in his cell.
Pretty fun. And I just love that pot is saving the paranormal.
Right.
Like, who knew? This place could not have the craziest fucking reincarnations, right? It's just
It has been everything.
right, yeah.
And continues to
And
be.
it started with Carnegie, which is just also kind of a fun fact. You know what I mean? Like, it was supposed to be his mother's house. I mean,
Yeah. Wonder what she thinks about the hydroponic.
she's probably just happy she never fucking went there, considering
She's
what became.
Seriously, I doubt she's there.
No, she never lived there or anything.
Yeah. Interesting. Anyway, so that's that on that, guys. Laura, do you have anything to say or add or
I think I did.
do, or that's it?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that because I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I forgot to mention that. At the end, I got all serial killer,
We love true crime too.
right?
Without true crime, there probably wouldn't be any paranormal. So.
Right. I got a little Twitter painted with the serial killer, and then I was like, oh yeah, there things happen after, whatever.
Right? That's funny.
Everything begins and ends with the serial killers.
Seriously. All right. Why did you let them know where they could follow us? Oh, no, wait. It's not working. Hang on. Damn it.
Oh no.
There we go.
All right. You can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at HOH Podcast. And our personal TikToks at HOH Carrie and at HOAH co-host Laura.
Yes. I'm starting to get, because I always do those lip syncy TikToks. I'm starting to get requests now from people that'll like send me TikToks, and they'll be like, you got to do this sound. So I will probably have one that I do this weekend that's kind of funny. It's about witchcraft. I was like, oh, I love it. That's cute. I'll do that one.
That's funny.
I know.
TikTok, man.
I do love the TikTok. I'll tell you what. So anyway, guys, thanks so much for watching. Thanks so much for listening. Thanks so much for joining us on our new release day of Mondays. And without further ado, we're going to go. I'm going to refill my coffee, Laura, and then we're going to do your Monday morning story. And we are back with those. I'm excited for that. I've got a list of like 7 that I want to cover.
I got
So,
them too.
yeah, it's a lot of fun. So, did Zane provide you with them?
No, but I'm sure he would if I asked.
Probably big long list. Here you go,
They're going to
guys.
be like all World War One and Two, though.
All military stuff. Yeah, love it. All right, guys. As we say, stay safe out there because you never know who
Or what serial killer?
you
Yeah.
is listening or watching or telling you to get out when you ask him about his horrific murders. It's weird he doesn't want to talk about it. Anyway, all right. Bye, guys. Have a great week.
Bye.